Fox girl in my study group keeps sitting too close. Riona felt the frantic pulse of the Academy's hidden data currents, a constant, low-level static that blurred her thoughts. It was a vulnerability no other Ethelian seemed to share, a burden she carried alone. Only when Lysander, with his calm demeanor and steady biosignature, sat beside her, did the mental din recede, allowing her to truly focus. His quiet presence was her sanctuary, her secret weapon against overwhelming sensory input. She craved his proximity, not just for study, but for mental peace, unaware that this profound personal need was about to pull them both into a dangerous web of interstellar intrigue. Lysander navigated the bustling thoroughfares of the interstellar Concord Academy on Xylos Prime. Students from 100 worlds flowed around him, their varied gaits and forms creating a vibrant, controlled chaos. He dodged a towering Cathar, their multi-jointed legs clicking on the polished floor, then offered a small nod to a passing, shimmering Sylvian. His focus remained on reaching the economic study lab. Terran Alliance business ethics formed the core of his curriculum, a stark contrast to some of the more esoteric studies pursued by his classmates. He found a quiet satisfaction in logic and practical application. He entered the shared economics lab, its central holographic projector already cycling through supply chain projections. Their joint study group had claimed a large circular table near the power conduits, a spot Riona seemed to prefer. Lysander spotted her immediately, a splash of soft orange fur amidst the varied textures of other students. Riona, an Ethelian vulpine, already sat at the table, her tail loosely curled beneath her. Her species was known for their keen intellect and heightened senses, traits he often witnessed in their discussions. Lysander settled into the seat directly across from her, pulling his data slate from his satchel. He watched her for a moment, noticing the subtle tremor in her ears, a faint twitching that seemed to follow the low thrum of the lab's energy field. Her gaze darted around the room, too quick, too restless. He found the projected market data on the screen difficult to focus on himself, a mild distraction he usually ignored. As the other students arrived, filling the seats, Riona began to shift. Imperceptibly at first, a slight rotation of her chair, a gentle lean. Then her tail extended, uncurling from beneath her, a soft, fluffy brush against his leg. Lysander paused, a polite confusion flickering through him. It was a recurring pattern. She always edged closer, her movements fluid and quiet until their shoulders nearly touched. He never moved away. It felt almost necessary for her. He noticed the change in her demeanor the moment her fur grazed his arm. The restless twitch in her ears ceased. Her green eyes, previously scanning the room, now fixed with an unwavering intensity on the holographic projections. Her posture relaxed, the subtle tension in her shoulders melting away. She picked up her stylus, her movements precise, making notes on her personal slate. When she was distant, even a few inches, a faint fidgeting returned, her tail lashing softly on the floor, her gaze less anchored. Now she was a statue of concentration. Lysander felt a curious warmth from her proximity, a mild but steady sensation that mirrored the quiet calm settling over her. He did not understand it, but he instinctively respected it. He adjusted his own data slate, giving her a little more space, an unspoken invitation for her to get as close as she needed. He found himself focusing better too, the background hum of the lab fading into a comfortable drone. He began to dissect the complex algorithms of interstellar resource allocation, with a clarity he had not possessed moments before. He wondered if it was an Ethelian trait, this need for physical closeness in a study environment. He had seen other vulpine students, but none exhibited the same consistent, almost gravitational pull towards a specific individual. Or perhaps, he mused, it was just Riona. He respected her privacy too much to ask, and she never offered an explanation. Their shared silence during these sessions had become a comfortable ritual, a unique rhythm in the Academy's demanding schedule. Today's projections detailed the fluctuating value of viridian crystals, a critical component for sublight drive core fabrication. The data stream scrolled across the communal screen, complex equations and market predictions filling the space. Riona's hand moved quickly, her stylus a blur as she annotated her personal data slate. Lysander focused on the implications for Terran Alliance shipping routes, considering the potential impact on his family's logistics firm back on Earth. His own stylus, a standard issue Academy model, had a slightly worn tip. He preferred its familiar feel. Suddenly, Riona paused. Her stylus hovered over her slate, then she lowered it. Lysander glanced at her, sensing her stillness. She looked down at her own data slate, then at the tip of her stylus. It was clearly malfunctioning. A tiny indicator light at the base of her stylus flickered red, then died. Lysander heard her soft, almost imperceptible sigh. She lifted her head, her green eyes, bright and intelligent, meeting his. There was a fleeting moment of hesitation, a vulnerability he rarely saw in her. Her gaze held his, a silent question passing between them. Lysander understood immediately. She needed a working stylus, and he had his, resting idly beside his data slate. He reached for his own stylus, its polished chrome glinting under the lab lights. Without a word, he extended it towards her. His fingers brushed hers as she took it, a brief, warm contact. Riona's fur felt surprisingly soft against his skin. Her green eyes widened fractionally, a silent acknowledgement of the gesture. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice a soft, melodic sound, barely audible above the lab's ambient noise. It was the first direct dialogue they had exchanged outside of group project discussions, and it was for something so simple, yet it felt significant. Her gaze lingered on his for another beat, a fleeting connection that felt deeper than the casual exchange of an item. Lysander simply nodded, a small, reassuring smile touching his lips. He watched as she took the stylus and, without another moment of hesitation, returned her intense focus to her data slate. The faint tremor in her ears did not return. The soft brush of her tail against his leg, a comforting, familiar pressure, remained. He resumed his own work, a newfound clarity in his thoughts, a quiet sense of connection settling within him. He did not know why her proximity helped him, but he recognized its unexpected benefit. The intricate web of interstellar economics suddenly seemed less daunting, more decipherable. For this brief moment, the overwhelming sensory input of the academy, the pressure of his studies, and the anxieties of the future all receded. Her quiet presence was a shield, a silent anchor in a universe of constant motion. He felt a profound, unspoken gratitude for her, for this strange, comfortable alliance that had formed between them. He had no idea how much this quiet understanding, this simple act of sharing, would soon define their lives. He continued to make notes, his mind sharper, his thoughts flowing with an unusual ease. The faint scent of something earthy and clean, specific to Ethelian fur, reached him. It was a subtle presence, easily overlooked by most, but Lysander found it grounding. He looked at Riona's profile, her concentration absolute. Her unique need, whatever its origin, had inadvertently created a peculiar, effective symbiosis between them. He felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet content he rarely experienced in the sterile, competitive environment of the academy. He realized he had begun to anticipate these shared study sessions, not just for the academic work, but for the unexpected peace they brought. The world outside their small, quiet sphere seemed to fade, replaced by the intimate dance of shared focus and unspoken understanding. This simple, academic routine was slowly weaving them into something far more significant. The threads of their individual lives, previously separate, were now subtly, irrevocably intertwined. Lysander noticed it first during a complex interspecies trade simulation. Riona, usually a formidable competitor, seemed to falter when seated across the lab from him, her data slate responses slower, her tail twitching with subdued frustration. But when the lab configuration shifted, placing them side by side for a collaborative module, her efficiency surged. Her fingers flew across the console, arguments for her chosen trade routes articulated with sharp clarity. He saw her final score, displayed briefly on the shared screen, ranking among the top 5 in their cohort, a stark contrast to her earlier, less decisive performance. The correlation was undeniable to him, though he kept the observation to himself. Her proximity, his presence, unlocked something in her. He began to track it, not overtly, but with a quiet, academic curiosity. In the expansive general study halls, where students from a dozen species clustered around holographic displays, Riona invariably chose a seat adjacent to his. If he arrived first, she would approach, her gait fluid and purposeful, and settle into the chair beside him. The lean was almost imperceptible at first. A slight shift of her weight, a subtle angling of her body until her shoulder was a mere breath from his. Sometimes her soft fur brushed his arm, a contact as light as falling dust. He never flinched. He never moved away. Instead, he found a curious anchor in the slight pressure, a steadying force against the mental clamor of the academy. His internal thoughts questioned the unconventional intimacy. Interspecies contact, especially prolonged physical proximity, usually required explicit social cues or established relationships. They were classmates, nothing more. Yet no one else seemed to notice, or perhaps no one else cared. He certainly did not. The quiet comfort her presence offered outweighed any fleeting concern for social norms. He found himself unbothered, then intrigued, then oddly reassured. Her silent reliance on him, though unspoken, fostered a unique sense of responsibility. He wasn't just a study partner. He was, in some strange way, a part of her academic equilibrium. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, a quiet content he rarely experienced amidst the competitive hum of Xylos Prime's premier institution. Weeks later, during a group project meeting for advanced galactic commerce, they sat at a communal table with 3 other students, a towering, multi-limbed Genar, a diminutive, chirping Cathar, and a stern-faced Valerius. The topic was the volatile supply chain of rare minerals from the planet Kaelin. Riona, usually reserved in group discussions, presented a complex analysis of Kaelin's mining guild power dynamics, her voice clear and precise. Lysander, listening intently, caught a flicker of uncertainty in her green eyes as the Valerius challenged her projections. He saw her subtle lean, felt the familiar brush of her arm. He offered a concise counterpoint, supporting her data with his own research into Kaelin's historical market trends. Riona's gaze met his across the table. It was a brief, shared glance devoid of words, yet brimming with a silent understanding. In that instant, a thread of connection, previously invisible, tightened between them. It was more than academic collaboration. It was a recognition, a mutual acknowledgement of their unique, comfortable alliance. The Cathar chirped its agreement, and the Valerius conceded with a curt nod. Riona offered a small, almost imperceptible smile, directed only at him. The meeting continued, but for Lysander, the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. He found himself subtly adjusting his posture, not just for his own comfort but to accommodate her. If he moved his data slate, he would ensure there was ample space for her to lean. If he shifted in his chair, he would angle it slightly, creating an invitation for her quiet proximity. It was a subconscious act at first, then a deliberate choice. He would arrive at their usual study spots a few minutes early, ensuring their preferred seating arrangement was available. He would set his materials down, leaving the space beside him open, a silent signal. He started carrying a small, extra datapad, just in case her stylus malfunctioned again. This unspoken ritual became a steady rhythm in their academic lives. He watched her sometimes when her focus was absolute, her orange fur soft in the ambient light. Her ears would twitch slightly, catching distant sounds that he couldn't discern, but her body remained calm, anchored by his presence. He had grown accustomed to the faint, earthy scent of her fur, the quiet rustle of her tail. He found himself anticipating their study sessions, not just for the clarity they brought his own work, but for the profound, unexpected peace he found in her closeness. This act of quiet acceptance, his subconscious acknowledgement of her unique need, was weaving their individual threads into a stronger, more intricate bond than either of them yet fully understood. Their shared silence was becoming a language, their proximity a sanctuary. The Academy Library on Veridian Prime hummed with its usual late-cycle energy, but tonight, a different kind of quiet settled around Riona and Lysander. Most students had departed, leaving only a scattered few and the soft glow of data slates illuminating their faces. Riona shifted slightly, her shoulder brushing Lysander's arm, a familiar contact she usually sought without thought. Tonight, however, her movements were hesitant, her focus fractured. Lysander noticed her unusual stillness, the slight tremor in her orange tail as it lay curled beside her chair. He glanced at her, a question in his steady gaze. Riona took a breath, the air thick with unspoken words. Her ears twitched, catching the distant whir of a cleaning drone. She had practiced this moment in her mind countless times, each rehearsal ending with her chickening out. But the quiet intimacy of their shared space, the trust blooming between them, urged her forward. She needed him to understand. She needed to explain this singular, profound need. Lysander, she began, her voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to her usual confident tones. She kept her eyes fixed on her data slate, unable to meet his gaze just yet. "There's something I need to tell you about." Lysander set his stylus down, turning fully towards her. His posture was open, inviting, a silent signal for her to continue. He recognized the weight of her words, the unusual vulnerability in her voice. He waited patiently. Riona gathered her courage, her tail giving another small, involuntary twitch. "My mind," she started, fumbling for the right words. "It's different. Ethelian minds, we perceive more. We are acutely sensitive to data currents, energy fluctuations, even the subtle emotional emanations of others. It's usually a gift, enhances our connection to Ethel's bionet, to our history." She paused, finally looking up, her green eyes earnest, searching his for understanding. "But here, on Veridian Prime in this academy, it's overwhelming." Lysander listened intently, his expression unreadable but attentive. He made no move to interrupt, allowing her the space to articulate her truth. "The Academy," Riona continued, her voice gaining a soft urgency, "it's a nexus of information of countless species, each with their own unique biosignatures, their thoughts, their digital footprints. It creates a constant, low-level static in my mind, a cacophony of input that I can't filter. It blurs my thoughts, makes it impossible to focus, to learn." She gestured vaguely around the vast, almost empty library. "I tried everything to block it out. Specialized ear implants, neural dampeners. Nothing worked." She looked directly at him now, her gaze unwavering. "Until you." Lysander's brow furrowed, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He had suspected a connection, an unseen dynamic, but this was beyond his imaginings. "Your presence," Riona explained, her voice dropping to an even softer tone, "your biosignature, it's incredibly stable, calm, steady. When I am close to you, that static, that overwhelming input, it recedes. It's like you create a grounding field, a quiet space within the chaos, allowing my mind to finally process, to think clearly." She took a shallow breath. "It's why I always sit beside you, why I lean into your space. It's not just for comfort, Lysander, it's for clarity. It's how I function here." Her confession hung in the air, raw and exposed. Lysander absorbed her words, processing them with his typical methodical calm. He recalled her fidgeting when separated, her intense focus when they were nearly touching. It all made perfect sense now. His surprise gave way to a profound sense of understanding, and something else, a warmth spreading through his chest. He saw her vulnerability, the burden she had carried alone, and recognized the immense trust she had just placed in him. He cleared his throat softly. "I admit, Riona," he began, his voice low and even. "I noticed the correlation. Your focus, your performance, it was always sharper when we were together." He met her gaze, a small, genuine smile forming on his lips. "I wondered, of course, but I never found your proximity an intrusion. In fact, I found it subtly soothing too." Riona's ears perked, her eyes widening slightly. A wave of relief washed over her, easing the tension that had coiled in her stomach. He understood. More than that, he felt it too. "I didn't fully understand why," Lysander continued, his internal thoughts turning over this new revelation. He had attributed his own enhanced focus to her quiet work ethic, her steady presence. Now he realized there was more to it, an unseen resonance between them, a unique, almost symbiotic connection. He had always been a solitary student, finding deep concentration difficult amidst the academy's constant bustle. Her quiet, steady presence, he now understood, had inadvertently provided him with his own form of calm, a shared sanctuary. When you were beside me, he explained, his gaze steady, I felt a similar sense of peace. The distractions, the peripheral noise, they seemed to fade. I could concentrate better, think more clearly. He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. I just thought it was the quiet nature of our shared study, or perhaps your own focused energy rubbing off on me. He offered a small, self-deprecating chuckle. Turns out, there's a much more profound reason. Riona felt a profound sense of connection, deeper than any she had known. To have her secret not just accepted but mirrored was an unexpected gift. Her tail gave a happy, almost imperceptible flick, a silent expression of her relief. So she said, her voice soft, a hint of lightness returning to it, we have an arrangement then. Lysander smiled, a genuine warm expression that reached his eyes. It seems we do. He shifted his data slate, moving it slightly to the left, creating a fraction more space between their chairs. It was an invitation, a silent reassurance that her need was not only accepted but welcomed. Riona understood the gesture immediately. She leaned in, her shoulder settling against his, a comfortable, familiar pressure. The subtle static in her mind, which had intensified with her anxiety, now receded, replaced by the tranquil clarity she craved. Their shared secret, this delicate confession, had reshaped the landscape of their relationship. They were no longer just classmates sharing a study table. They were allies in a silent pact, bound by an unusual, yet deeply comforting interdependence. Lysander felt a subtle shift within himself, a protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. He looked at Riona, her eyes now focused on her data slate, her fur soft in the ambient light. He saw not just a classmate, but a trusting soul who had unveiled a piece of herself to him, and in doing so, had deepened his own understanding of connection. He found himself anticipating their next study session with renewed eagerness. It wasn't just about academics anymore. It was about the quiet understanding that had blossomed between them, the shared vulnerability that had forged a new, stronger bond. He knew now that his presence was essential for her, and her presence, in turn, had become essential for his own peace. This was more than friendship, more than academic partnership. This was the quiet forging of something profound, a silent promise whispered in the hushed halls of the academy, a connection that transcended species and circumstance. Their proximity was no longer just a habit. It was a deliberate choice, a foundation built on trust and a unique, shared emotional space. This deliberate choice led them to the academy's quieter, less frequented areas. They discovered a series of secluded study pods on the third level of the central library, each equipped with holographic projection tables and sound-dampening fields. Here, the pervasive mental static that plagued Riona was almost entirely absent, allowing her an unprecedented level of calm. Lysander found the quiet solitude equally beneficial, his focus sharpening without the constant bustle of the main study halls. Their first private session in a pod felt different. The air was charged with a comfortable intimacy, a shared understanding that transcended their previous academic encounters. Riona settled into her chair, then with an almost imperceptible movement, shifted it closer to Lysander's. Her shoulder brushed his, a familiar contact that instantly eased the subtle tension in her mind. Lysander felt the familiar, soothing effect of her presence, a quiet hum of contentment settling within him. He opened his data slate, but their minds were not solely on their economics projections. During a break, while the holographic table displayed a complex market analysis, Riona glanced at Lysander. You know, she began, her voice soft, it is strange, this quiet. On Ethel, true quiet is rare. There is always the soft glow, the gentle rustle of the living light flora. Lysander looked at her, genuinely intrigued. Living light flora, he asked. Tell me about Ethel. Riona's green eyes softened, a distant warmth entering them. Ethel is a world of perpetual twilight, lit by bioluminescent flora and fauna. Our cities blend seamlessly with the natural landscape, structures grown rather than built, living architecture that glows with soft, shifting colors. We communicate not just through spoken word, but through subtle shifts in bioluminescence, a language of light. She paused, a wistful expression crossing her face. Our society is deeply communal. We value collective well-being above individual gain, and our decisions are made through a consensus of elders, guided by the wisdom of the living world. Lysander absorbed her words, a new picture forming in his mind. That's vastly different from Terran Alliance, he observed. We prize individual achievement, innovation, competition. Our cities are towers of metal and glass, reaching for the stars, often separate from the natural world. He thought of the bustling, sometimes overwhelming energy of Neo-London, his home sector. We've learned to thrive on efficiency and rapid progress, pushing boundaries constantly. And your aspirations, Lysander? Riona asked, her tail giving a small, curious flick. What drives you beyond these academy walls? He considered her question carefully. I want to understand the intricate dance of interstellar trade, the currents that bind worlds together or pull them apart. My family has a long history in logistics and resource management. I believe a stable, equitable trade network is the foundation of lasting peace. I want to contribute to that stability. He looked at her, a quiet sincerity in his gaze. What about you, Riona? What do you seek for Ethel, for yourself? Her expression grew serious, the wistfulness replaced by a subtle tension. Ethel thrives on balance, on reciprocity with our environment and with other species. We are not self-sufficient in all resources, and the interstellar trade treaty is critical for us. She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper, though the pod's dampening field ensured their privacy. There is a looming renegotiation of the treaty. It directly impacts our access to vital minerals for our bioengineering, essential for maintaining our living cities and light flora. If the terms are unfavorable, it could disrupt our entire ecosystem, our way of life. A tremor of anxiety ran through her voice. Some factions within the conquered seek to impose terms that would exploit our unique resources or force us into untenable dependencies. My elders are deeply concerned. Lysander felt a prickle of unease. This was more than academic theory. This was personal, vital. He saw the genuine worry in her eyes, the weight of her world resting on her slender shoulders. Exploit Ethel's resources, he murmured, his brow furrowing. How so? Our light flora possess unique energy storage capabilities, Riona explained, her ears flattened slightly in distress. Some want to commodify that, to turn Ethel into a mere energy farm, disregarding the delicate balance of our planet. They speak of efficiency gains and market opportunities, but they do not understand the profound connection we have to our world. It is not a commodity to be harvested. Lysander's mind, trained in the complexities of interstellar markets and corporate structures, immediately began analyzing the implications. He recognized the pattern. That sounds like a classic leverage play, he stated, his voice calm but firm. If Ethel's needs are specific and critical and certain factions control the supply, they can dictate terms. They'd exploit the dependency, not foster equitable trade. He thought for a moment, his gaze distant as he processed the information. From a Terran business perspective, the key to resisting such pressure lies in diversifying your options, understanding their vulnerabilities, and presenting a unified, unyielding front at the negotiating table. Do your elders have contingency plans? Riona looked at him, a flicker of hope entering her eyes. She had confessed her deepest anxieties, revealed a political undercurrent that touched the very core of her home world, and he had not dismissed it as a naive worry. Instead, he had offered objective, practical insight. Contingency plans are being discussed, she admitted, but the intricacies of interstellar conquered politics are vast. We are a smaller voice, focused on our internal balance, not on aggressive negotiation tactics. Aggressive isn't always effective, Lysander countered, but strategic is. Knowing their motivations, their weaknesses, is paramount. Every negotiation has pressure points. You have to find them. He looked at her, a quiet reassurance in his eyes. He hadn't sought this role, but he felt an instinctive desire to help. Her trust in sharing this was palpable, a fragile gift he held with care. He hadn't realized how deeply her concerns had resonated with him, how instinctively he wanted to protect her world. He was no longer just a classmate offering study advice. He was a confidant, unknowingly drawn into a conflict far larger than academy economics. Their quiet study sessions had now taken on an entirely new, profound dimension. The quiet study pod, once a sanctuary of academic pursuits, now held the weight of interstellar politics. Lysander watched Riona, her green eyes still holding the flicker of shared anxiety. She ran a hand over her data slate, a gesture of quiet contemplation, then her ears twitched, picking up a faint ping. A new message had arrived. Riona's gaze dropped to the screen. Her fingers, usually nimble and precise, hesitated before tapping the notification. A complex sequence of symbols unfurled across the display, not a standard academy communication. Lysander saw a shift in her posture, a subtle stiffening as her tail, which had been loosely coiled, now wrapped tightly around her leg. Her breath hitched. "What is it?" Lysander asked, his voice low, sensing her sudden distress. Riona pushed the data slate across the table towards him, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's a coded message," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "From Ethel, from a contact my elders trust." Her eyes met his, wide with alarm. "It speaks of a hidden agenda, a rival faction within the conquered. They are trying to sabotage the treaty." Lysander took the slate, his brow furrowing as he studied the intricate glyphs. He didn't understand the Ethelian code, but the urgency in Riona's voice was clear. He quickly accessed his own data slate, opening a universal translation program. Inputting the symbols Riona indicated were key. The translated phrases flickered onto his screen: resource reallocation, strategic market dominance, exploitation of unique biodiversity. His analytical mind immediately connected these terms to their earlier discussion about Ethel's light flora. "This confirms your fears," Lysander stated, his tone grave. "They want to control Ethel's critical resources, not just trade equitably." He looked up, his gaze locking with hers. "This isn't just about economics anymore. It's about power and control. They're trying to destabilize Ethel's position before the negotiations even begin." Riona nodded, her ears flattened slightly against her head. "Precisely. My contact indicates they are manipulating data streams, creating false reports about Ethel's resource output and market stability. They want to weaken our bargaining power, make us appear desperate." She wrung her hands. "My elders are preparing, but this is a direct attack on the integrity of the treaty. Ethel cannot fight this alone, not against such entrenched interests." A profound sense of dread settled in the small pod. Riona's vulnerability was palpable, her fear for her home whirled a tangible presence between them. Lysander felt a jolt of protective instinct. He had offered advice before, but this was different. This was an active threat, requiring intervention. "My knowledge of interstellar markets is one thing," Lysander began, choosing his words carefully. "But direct political sabotage, that's a different sphere. It carries significant risks." He considered his position as a student, the potential academic and diplomatic fallout if he were to become involved in such a volatile situation. His Terran alliance connections were primarily commercial, not covert. "I'm not trained for this kind of operation." Riona leaned forward, her eyes pleading. "But you understand the mechanisms. You saw the leverage play immediately. Your Terran alliance connections, your insights into corporate structures, they are invaluable. My people, we think in terms of balance and harmony. We are not accustomed to this kind of aggressive subterfuge. We need someone who can dissect their methods, predict their next moves." She paused, her voice softening, a note of desperation entering. "You are the only one I trust with this, Lysander. You're the only one who truly understands the scope of what's happening, without dismissing it as trivial. Lysander felt the weight of her trust, a heavy yet warm sensation in his chest. He remembered her earlier confessions, her reliance on his presence for mental clarity. He had observed her unique vulnerability, and now she was laying bare another, far greater one. He thought of the peaceful world of Ethel, the images Riona had shared, the delicate light flora. He imagined it threatened, exploited. The ethical implications of inaction pressed down on him. This wasn't merely an academic exercise. It was a matter of justice, of peaceful interstellar relations. His hesitation evaporated. "Okay," he said, the word firm, resolute. "Tell me everything you know about this faction, about the specific points of the treaty they want to target." He pushed the translated message back to her. "Let's analyze this. What kind of data manipulation are we talking about? How are they routing their communications?" A wave of relief washed over Riona's face, her green eyes shining. "Thank you, Lysander," she breathed, a genuine smile breaking through her worry. "Thank you." They immediately shifted from discussion to strategy. Riona retrieved a secure, encrypted comm device from her satchel, a piece of Ethelian technology Lysander had never seen before. "My contact can send us raw data streams," she explained. "But they are heavily encrypted, layered with deceptive protocols designed to look like routine interfaction chatter." "Good," Lysander said, his mind already racing, formulating a plan. "Deceptive protocols are still protocols. There will be patterns, digital fingerprints. We need to identify the anomalies, the statistical deviations that reveal the true intent." He pulled his own data slate closer, connecting it to the Academy's secure network, ready to establish a shielded workspace. "My Terran Alliance background includes training in advanced data analysis. We can cross-reference communication timestamps, identify unusual traffic spikes, and trace the routing origins." Riona's ears twitched with focused determination. "My Ethelian sensory abilities extend to detecting subtle energy fluctuations, even in digital environments. It's how I can filter the Academy's general data static. I might be able to pinpoint where the genuine data is being corrupted, where the false narratives are injected." They began to work. Riona projected the raw, coded message onto the pod's main display, a cascade of alien script and symbols. Lysander, using his analytical tools, started to build a framework for decryption and anomaly detection. He explained the principles of market manipulation, the subtle ways data could be skewed to influence perception. Riona, in turn, described the unique properties of Ethel's light flora, the specific vulnerabilities the rival faction sought to exploit. Hours passed in intense concentration. The silent companionship they had shared during study sessions now deepened into a profound, shared purpose. Lysander found himself leaning closer to the display, Riona's arm brushing his as she pointed out a particular sequence. He felt her warmth, not as a calming presence now, but as an energizing one, a confirmation of their partnership. Riona, too, felt the shift. Lysander's steady focus, his logical approach, grounded her frantic thoughts. His quiet determination was a powerful anchor against the rising tide of fear. She found herself observing the subtle clench of his jaw as he worked, the way his brow furrowed in concentration. The intimacy of their shared mental space, once a comfort, now bloomed into something more. It was a nascent affection, born from mutual respect and the urgent need to protect what they both believed in. "Look here," Lysander murmured, tapping a section of the display. "These routing protocols, they're mimicking a standard Concord logistics chain, but the latency is too high for the volume. It suggests an intermediary node, an untraceable jump point." Riona's gaze sharpened. She closed her eyes for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration, her internal senses reaching out. "Yes," she whispered, opening her eyes. "There's a faint echo, a residual energy signature. It's like a whisper within the data, a transient distortion that wouldn't register on standard scanners." She pointed to a specific point on the screen. "It's here. This is where the true origin is masked." A quiet sense of triumph passed between them. It was a small step, but a crucial one. Their combined, unique skills were proving effective. Lysander felt a surge of admiration for her intuition, her almost mystical connection to the subtle energies of the digital world. Riona looked at Lysander, seeing not just a brilliant student but a courageous ally, a man willing to risk his own peace for the sake of her world. Their hands, resting near each other on the data slate, remained untouched, yet the air between them thrummed with unspoken understanding, a silent promise to face the unfolding intrigue together. The masked origin of the compromised data was only the beginning. Lysander shifted in the study pod, pulling up projected trade manifests for Ethel's light flora exports. Riona leaned in, her gaze fixed on the holographic display, a faint tremor running through her fur. "The routing protocols are one thing," Lysander stated, his voice low. "But look at these projected yield reports. They're drastically understated, by almost 20%. Riona's ears twitched. "Understated? How could that be? Our cultivators report consistent harvest numbers. The light flora thrives." "Exactly," Lysander confirmed. "This data isn't reflecting Ethel's actual capacity. It's being manipulated within the Concord's pre-treaty assessment modules. If these numbers are accepted, Ethel's bargaining power will be severely diminished." He scrolled through a series of complex algorithms. They've introduced a series of microfluctuations, masked as environmental variability coefficients. It's designed to appear like natural resource degradation over time, a slow, subtle bleed of your economic standing. Riona felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. This was not just sabotage, it was an insidious long-term assault on her world's future. Who would have the authority to alter such fundamental data within the Concord's core systems? She whispered. Her Ethelian senses reached out, feeling the cold, calculated intent embedded in the data pattern. It was a dense, heavy signature, unlike the transient echoes she'd sensed before. Lysander's jaw tightened. That's the troubling part. These aren't entry-level hacks. This requires high-level access, probably within the Concord's Department of Interstellar Commerce or even higher, someone with direct oversight of treaty negotiations. He looked at Riona, his eyes grim. "We're not just dealing with a rival corporation anymore. This is coming from within." The realization hung heavy in the air. The danger had just escalated exponentially. Lysander knew exposing officials of this caliber would invite severe repercussions, not just for the conspirators, but for anyone who dared to challenge them. His own academic career, his future within the Terran Alliance could be irrevocably damaged. Yet, looking at Riona, at the fear and fierce determination in her green eyes, he felt an unwavering resolve. This was bigger than his future. It was about justice, about protecting the innocent, about the fragile balance of interstellar peace. "We need to verify this," Riona said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Find their digital fingerprints, their energy signatures." Lysander nodded. "I can cross-reference these manipulated reports with publicly available market forecasts and even some unofficial projections from my network. But I need to be careful. Any direct inquiries about Ethel's projected yields could tip them off." He began to formulate a plan, mentally sifting through his contacts. There was Alara, a junior data analyst at a major trade consortium who owed him a favor. Kalen, a former academy classmate now interning with a shipping logistics firm. Even Professor Thorne, his old economic mentor, known for his discreet, independent market analyses. Each contact represented a calculated risk, a thread in a web he had to navigate without snapping it. His reputation, his integrity, all were on the line. But the thought of Riona's world, her vibrant light flora being exploited, fueled his courage. While Lysander began sending out carefully worded, generic data requests, Riona closed her eyes again, focusing her Ethelian senses on the complex data patterns Lysander had highlighted. Her unique ability allowed her to perceive the subtle distortions, the almost imperceptible residue left by conscious manipulation within digital structures. It wasn't about reading code. It was about feeling the intent behind it. She felt the cold, almost aggressive energy in the manipulated yield reports, a stark contrast to the organic, flowing data of legitimate Ethelian trade flows. It was like a discordant note in a familiar melody, a jarring presence that screamed of artificial interference. She focused on the timestamps, the subtle shifts in encryption layers, the faint, almost ghostly presence of multiple access points converging on the same dataset. There are multiple layers, Riona murmured, her eyes still closed, her brow furrowed. It's not just one person. I sense a coordinated effort, different energy signatures, but all working towards the same goal. One, however, is dominant. It's a signature of immense control, of absolute authority. Lysander paused his typing, looking at her, a profound sense of awe mixing with concern. Her abilities were truly extraordinary, a window into the digital world he could only interpret through algorithms. Her raw intuition was cutting through layers of obfuscation that would take him weeks to unravel. "Can you track that dominant signature?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Riona shook her head slowly. "Not directly. It's too well shielded, too powerful, but it leaves a distinct imprint on the data it touches, like a watermark. If we can find other data points with that same imprint, we can build a profile." Her internal thought was a whirlwind of sensory input, a complex dance of digital whispers and energy fluctuations. The weight of the conspiracy felt physical, pressing down on her. But Lysander's steady presence beside her, the subtle warmth emanating from him, kept her grounded, focused. His logical mind was the perfect counterpoint to her intuitive one, transforming her abstract perceptions into actionable intelligence. Lysander resumed his work, now refining his data requests, adding subtle parameters to look for specific digital watermarks Riona described. He began to cross-reference the manipulated Ethelian data with other conquered economic projections, searching for similar patterns of understated yields or unusual environmental variability coefficients impacting other, less prominent planets. If this was a systemic scheme, Ethel might not be the only target. Hours bled into a seamless rhythm of shared concentration. Lysander would uncover a suspicious data string, Riona would interpret its energetic signature, and together they would refine their search. Their hands often hovered near each other on the data slate, occasionally brushing, a quiet, reassuring contact that spoke volumes without words. The nascent affection between them, once a subtle undercurrent, now pulsed with a vibrant energy, a shared purpose that transcended academic goals or personal comfort. Each discovery, each piece of the puzzle they fit together, deepened their resolve and their connection. Lysander found himself driven not just by the moral imperative, but by a powerful, protective instinct towards Riona and her world. He saw her courage, her unwavering commitment to her people, and it ignited something fierce within him. Riona, in turn, found strength in Lysander's methodical brilliance, his quiet strength, and his willingness to sacrifice his own security for her. His steady gaze, the way his hand instinctively reached to steady the data slate when her own trembled, confirmed his unwavering support. This wasn't just an alliance. It was a partnership of hearts and minds, forged in the crucible of escalating peril. The vastness of the conspiracy loomed, but within the small, secluded study pod, their connection glowed, a warm, protective flame against the encroaching darkness. Their collaborative efforts solidified their partnership against the escalating peril. Lysander traced the pervasive energy signature Riona described, a subtle distortion in the data stream, back to its source. It wasn't a specific server farm, but a highly secured, restricted data archive located deep within the administrative sector of the interstellar Concord Academy itself, on Veridian Prime. Access required multiple biometric verifications and specialized Concord clearance, far beyond their student credentials. This is where the real data is stored, Lysander murmured, pointing to a holographic schematic of the Academy's sublevels. The environmental variability coefficients and manipulated trade logs are just projections. The raw, unfiltered data, the true figures of Ethel's light flora yields, must be in there, and the original directives for the manipulation. Riona leaned closer, her tail twitching with a nervous energy. I can feel the density of the information from here, even through the schematics. It's like a heavy, suffocating blanket of lies. We need to get inside. How? Lysander asked, his brow furrowed. This isn't just a locked door. It's a fortified data vault. Even if we bypass the physical security, the digital firewalls would be impenetrable. My Ethelian senses can disrupt certain energy fields momentarily, Riona explained, her voice low. It's a risky maneuver, requires immense concentration. I could create a brief window in the digital defenses, a momentary flicker, but it would be short, perhaps seconds. Lysander considered this, his mind racing through protocols and security bypasses. Seconds might be enough for me to get a data tap in, if I prepare the Siphon program perfectly. We wouldn't be able to download everything, but we could snatch a core sample, enough to prove the manipulation. The physical access remains the challenge. They spent the next few hours devising a plan. Lysander identified a maintenance tunnel rarely monitored, leading to a service access panel near the archive's exterior wall. Riona focused her unique sensory abilities, practicing small, controlled energy pulses to disrupt the study pod's localized comms, testing her limits. The tension in the small space grew, a palpable thing between them. Under the cloak of the Academy's late-night quiet, they moved with purpose. The deserted corridors echoed their soft footsteps. Riona's fur bristled slightly, her senses extended, scanning for any unexpected presence. Lysander carried a small, discrete data siphon, its advanced Terran Alliance encryption designed to bypass most standard Conquered firewalls, given the right opportunity. They found the maintenance tunnel, its metallic walls cool and grimy. Lysander worked quickly to unlatch the access panel, his fingers precise. The air inside was still, heavy with the scent of recycled coolant and dust. Riona went first, her lithe form slipping through the narrow opening. Lysander followed, pulling the panel shut behind them. Inside the tunnel, the silence was absolute save for the hum of distant machinery. They crawled forward, guided by Lysander's internal map of the sublevels. Riona's ears swiveled, constantly listening. Closer now, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The density is overwhelming. It feels like a storm of distorted truth. They reached a grate overlooking the archive's main server room. Below, rows of gleaming data servers pulsed with a soft, internal light. Security drones, small and silent, patrolled the aisles, their optical sensors sweeping the area. There, Lysander pointed to a console embedded in the wall, directly connected to the core servers. That's our target. I need to get the siphon into that port. Riona nodded, her green eyes fixed on the console. I will create the disruption. It needs to be swift and precise. The moment I release it, you go. Lysander took a deep breath, understood. Riona closed her eyes, concentrating. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer radiated from her. The air around her seemed to crackle. She opened her eyes, a fierce determination burning within them. Now. A wave of focused energy rippled outwards from her, hitting the server room's digital defenses. For a fraction of a second, the security drones froze, their optical sensors blinking erratically. The console's port glowed green, indicating a momentary vulnerability. Lysander launched himself through the grate, landing softly on the floor. He sprinted towards the console, the data siphon ready. He jammed the device into the port, initiating the data transfer. A small indicator light on the siphon turned amber. The drones, their systems rebooting, began to whir. One of them emitted a high-pitched alert. Intruder detected in restricted sector Gamma 7, A synthesized voice blared. "They're on to us," Riona hissed from the grate, her face pale from exertion. Lysander pulled the siphon out, its amber light now pulsing rapidly. "Got it. Not everything, but enough. We need to go." He scrambled back towards the grate, but the drones were already converging. Their small propulsion units whined, and energy nets began to deploy. Lysander pushed through the grate, Riona pulling him back into the tunnel just as a net sparked against the metal frame. "This way," Riona urged, her tail lashing. She led the way back through the maintenance tunnels, moving with an agile speed Lysander struggled to match. The alarm sirens began to wail throughout the academy, a piercing, insistent shriek. "They'll have the whole sector locked down," Lysander gasped, pushing himself harder. "We need to get to the surface, into a populated area." They heard the distinct whir of pursuit drones entering the tunnel behind them. Their optical sensors, now calibrated, cast bright, searching beams ahead. Lysander risked a glance back. 3 drones were gaining rapidly. One drone fired an energy burst, narrowly missing Lysander's head and scorching the wall beside him. Riona, reacting instantly, spun around. Her long, bushy tail, a soft orange blur, wrapped around Lysander's waist, pulling him forward and shielding him from the next energy pulse. The fur of her tail crackled, absorbing a glancing hit, but her grip on him was firm, protective. The force of her pull threw him off balance, but it saved him from a direct impact. He stumbled, catching himself against the tunnel wall, his heart pounding. "Riona!" he exclaimed, a sudden surge of something profound washing over him. The raw, instinctive devotion in her action struck him with the force of a physical blow. They burst out of the tunnel into a service stairwell, then onto a lower concourse, now swarming with conquered security personnel and more advanced, weaponized drones. The academy was in lockdown. Lysander saw a flash of fear in Riona's eyes, quickly replaced by fierce resolve. "The central plaza," she yelled over the alarms, too many people for them to use full force. They weaved through bewildered students and staff, creating a chaotic shield. Security drones hovered above, hesitant to fire into the crowd. Riona, still keeping Lysander close, guided them with uncanny instinct, dodging security patrols and using architectural features as cover. Her tail remained subtly intertwined with his arm, a constant, reassuring pressure. They finally dove into an empty, secluded corner of the sprawling botanical gardens, a place usually bustling but now deserted due to the lockdown. They collapsed against a moss-covered bench, gasping for breath, the distant sirens still echoing. The adrenaline slowly receded, leaving them both shaky. Lysander looked at Riona, truly seeing her. Her fur was disheveled, her ears slightly flattened, but her green eyes held a fierce light. Her tail, still gently wrapped around his arm, felt like a lifeline. He realized then with a startling clarity that this wasn't just about Ethel or a treaty or even justice. It was about her. His heart ached with a tenderness he had never known. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "You put yourself in danger." Riona shifted, her gaze meeting his. "You are my grounding, Lysander. You are my clarity. I could not let them harm you." Her voice was soft, vulnerable, yet resolute. "My world needs you. I need you." Lysander reached out, his hand gently touching her cheek, feeling the soft fur beneath his palm. "I knew I felt peace with you," he confessed, his own voice thick with emotion. "I knew I cared about your world. But just now, seeing you, what you did, I realized it's more. Much more." He paused, searching for the right words. "I love you, Riona." Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise, then profound warmth blossoming within them. She leaned into his touch, her tail tightening its hold. "Lysander," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "I feel it too. This connection, this strength, it is unlike anything I have ever known. I love you." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken promise. The sirens faded to a dull throb in the background, no longer a threat but a distant reminder of the world outside their shared bubble. In that moment, surrounded by the alien flora of the academy gardens, their bond transformed. It was no longer just an alliance or a growing affection, but a deep, undeniable love, forged in the crucible of their shared peril and a desperate mission. "We have to see this through," Lysander stated, his gaze unwavering. "For Ethel, for us." Riona nodded, her determination renewed, her hand finding his and squeezing gently. Together. The near miss had not broken them. It had solidified their commitment, sharpening their resolve to expose the conspiracy and protect what they now both held most dear. They still had a mission, but now it was personal, woven into the very fabric of their burgeoning shared future. Lysander held Riona close, the scent of alien blossoms filling the air around them. The distant wail of sirens was a fading memory, replaced by the pounding of his own heart. Her confession, "I need you," echoed his deepest feelings. "We have the data," he stated, his voice firm, drawing strength from her proximity. "We need to analyze it, make it speak." Riona nodded, pulling back slightly but keeping her hand intertwined with his. The archive held more than just numbers. I felt the intent behind the manipulation, a cold, calculating signature. They moved with renewed purpose, finding a small, abandoned maintenance access point Riona had noted during their escape. It led to a forgotten sublevel, a network of conduits and unused storage chambers, perfect for their immediate needs. Lysander activated his comms, a secure, short-range burst to his private data slate, uploading the extracted file. The air shimmered with the silent transfer. "This is raw," he murmured, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "Deeply encrypted, multi-layered. They didn't want this seen by anyone." Riona leaned over his shoulder, her gaze fixed on the cascading lines of code. "The cold signature is here," she confirmed, pointing to a specific sequence of fluctuating energy patterns within the code. "It is a pattern of deliberate obfuscation, designed to mislead." Lysander began to cross-reference the archive data with the manipulated trade figures they had previously uncovered. The discrepancies were stark, but the direct links to the conspirators remained buried. "We need to find the transaction logs, the communication intercepts," he explained, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Something that connects a specific entity to this manipulation." Hours blurred into an intense session of decryption and analysis. Riona's unique Ethelian perception proved invaluable. She could sense the subtle shifts in the digital landscape, guiding Lysander to hidden folders and masked subroutines that his Terran algorithms might have missed. "This cluster of transactions," she pointed, her finger tracing a holographic projection. "The energy signature pulses strongest here. It feels like a direct flow, not a proxy." Lysander followed her intuition, drilling down through layers of shell corporations and digital fronts. Suddenly, a name flashed onto the screen, tied to a series of substantial, irregular payments. "Senator Valerius Kale," Lysander read aloud, his voice low, "head of the Concord's Interstellar Trade Council." A cold dread settled in the small chamber. Valerius Kale was an institution, a figure of immense power and influence across the Concord, known for his unyielding stance on economic policy. His reputation was unblemished, his political network vast. "Kale," Riona repeated, a tremor in her voice. "He was the architect of the original Ethelian trade agreements. He swore to protect our light flora." Her tail lashed softly. "This is a betrayal of the highest order." Lysander felt a surge of cold anger. This isn't just about Ethel's resources. This is about trust, about the foundation of interstellar peace. He knew the implications of accusing such a figure. Their lives, their academic careers, everything they held dear would be on the line. "We have irrefutable evidence," Lysander said, pulling up the full dossier. Encrypted communications, now decrypted, detailed Kale's directives to manipulate the environmental variability coefficients, ensuring Ethel's projected yields remained artificially low. Financial transaction logs showed large, untraceable sums flowing into accounts linked to Kale's personal holdings, masked through shell corporations in obscure systems. The evidence was a mountain. But who would believe us? Riona asked, her eyes reflecting the holographic data. Kale controls so much. He could discredit us, silence us. Lysander considered this, his mind racing through political structures, legal precedents, and personal networks. We cannot go through standard conquered channels. Kale's influence runs too deep there. He thought of the Academy's internal ethics protocols, the Concord's High Council on Ethical Governance, a body theoretically immune to political pressure. There is a pathway, the High Council on Ethical Governance. They operate with a degree of autonomy. Autonomy, or just less direct control, Riona countered, her voice laced with skepticism. This is not a small matter, Lysander. Kale's power is absolute in his domain. Lysander reached for her hand, his touch firm and reassuring. We need to present this to them directly. An unscheduled audience, perhaps during a high-profile event where Kale cannot easily interfere. He began to formulate a strategy. The pre-treaty summit. It's happening next week on Veridian Prime. All the key delegates will be present, including members of the High Council. We ambush him with the truth. Fear gnawed at Lysander. He imagined the backlash, the accusations, the danger. This wasn't just a political maneuver. It was a direct challenge to a powerful empire, risking everything for a world that wasn't his own, for a people he had only just come to know. Yet, looking at Riona, her eyes bright with a fierce, quiet resolve, his fear began to recede. This is dangerous, Riona, he admitted, his voice soft. They could try to discredit us, frame us. We could lose everything. Her grip tightened on his hand. We already stand to lose everything if we do nothing. Ethel's future, our future, depends on this. She paused, her gaze locking with his. Are you afraid? Yes, Lysander confessed, his honesty raw, for us. For what they might do to you. His fear was not for himself, but for her, for the gentle soul who had found solace in his presence, who had shown him a love he never knew existed. Riona smiled, a profound warmth in her emerald eyes. That fear is valid. But my fear for Ethel, for the balance of our world, for the injustice that would consume it, that fear is greater. She squeezed his hand again. And with you I feel strength. With you I am not alone. Her words were an anchor, pulling him back from the edge of doubt. Their bond, forged in quiet study sessions and tempered by shared peril, was now their most potent weapon. It was a commitment not just to a mission, but to each other. Then we do it, Lysander declared, his voice resolute. For Ethel, for us. We expose Kale. He started detailing the logistical challenges, how to secure an audience, how to protect their evidence, how to ensure their own safety during the presentation. They would need a moment of maximum impact, where the truth could not be ignored or immediately suppressed. Riona listened, contributing insights drawn from her understanding of conquered politics and Ethelian cultural emphasis on direct appeals to justice. We must ensure no one can intercept our plea. A direct, public presentation. No back channels. Exactly, Lysander agreed, a plan solidifying in his mind. We need to make it impossible for them to dismiss us as cranks or fabricators. The evidence must speak for itself, undeniably. He knew the fight ahead would be the hardest of their lives. But with Riona by his side, her hand a warm, steady presence in his, he felt an unwavering certainty. The mission was no longer just about data or politics. It was about love, justice, and the future they were building together. They were ready for the confrontation. Lysander and Riona moved through the opulent halls of the Veridian Prime pre-treaty summit, a sea of delegates from across the Concord. Their plan was audacious, relying on a small window of opportunity and the integrity of a few key individuals. Riona's hand found Lysander's, a silent anchor amidst the swirling currents of political maneuvering. His steady presence was a shield against the sensory overload, allowing her to focus her heightened senses on the subtle shifts in energy around them, searching for their opening. They had targeted the High Council on Ethical Governance, scheduled for a routine review of preliminary treaty data, not the main plenary session, which would be too controlled by Kale's influence. This smaller, focused meeting offered their best chance. Their contact, an unassuming Terran Alliance diplomat named Anya, had promised them a few minutes during the open forum segment, a slot usually reserved for minor procedural queries. It was a gamble, but their only one. As they approached the chamber, Riona felt a spike of nervous energy, but Lysander's grip tightened reassuringly. "Remember our practice," he murmured, his voice calm. "Facts and integrity. Let the truth do the work." Inside, the chamber was less grand than the main plenary, but still imposing. High-backed chairs for the 7 council members lined a curved dais. Delegates occupied the lower tiers. Senator Kale, imposing even from a distance, sat among them, a faint, predatory gleam in his eyes as he conversed with an aide. Riona's fur bristled. He was a wolf in diplomat's clothing. Anya caught their eye, giving a subtle nod. The current speaker concluded, and the council chair, a venerable Cathar elder, opened the floor for brief delegate observations. Anya rose, her voice clear. "Esteemed council, I request a moment for 2 Academy students, Lysander Vance and Riona of Ethel, to present an urgent observation regarding preliminary Ethelian trade data." A ripple went through the room. Kale's head snapped up, his gaze narrowing on them. Lysander felt a surge of adrenaline, but Riona's warmth beside him kept him grounded. They walked to the central podium, their data slates ready. "Thank you, Council," Lysander began, his voice projected with calm authority. "We have uncovered evidence of systemic data manipulation impacting the proposed interstellar trade treaty with Ethel." He activated his data slate, projecting a complex graph onto the main screen. This graph illustrates the officially reported Ethelian light flora yields over the past 5 cycles, compared to the verified, true yields we have accessed. The discrepancy was stark. The official figures showed a steady, modest growth, while the true figures depicted a vibrant, exponential expansion. A murmur spread through the delegates. "This manipulation," Riona added, her voice clear and resonant, "artificially deflates Ethel's economic standing, undermining its bargaining power and threatening its delicate ecosystem through undervalued resource extraction quotas." Her eyes swept across the council members, conveying the profound impact on her home world. Senator Kale rose, his expression a mask of indignation. "Council, this is an outrageous fabrication. These are mere students, likely misled or acting on behalf of a rival corporate interest. Their evidence is unverified, their accusations baseless." He gestured dismissively. "Such claims, without proper channels or established protocols, are nothing more than a desperate attempt to disrupt legitimate negotiations." Lysander met Kale's gaze without flinching. "Senator Kale, our evidence is meticulously sourced. It exposes a pattern of deliberate misreporting, masked by complex algorithmic variables designed to appear as natural market fluctuations." He advanced the projection, showing lines of code, timestamps, and routing protocols. "We traced this manipulation to a secure archive within the Concord Academy, a location only accessible to high-clearance personnel. This is not the work of rival corporate interests, but an inside operation." Kale scoffed. "A student's conjecture. Anyone can generate data. What proof do you have of its authenticity or your access to such secure archives?" His tone dripped with contempt, attempting to paint them as naive and reckless. "The proof lies in the methodology," Senator Lysander countered, his logic precise. "We cross-referenced publicly available market data with internal Concord reports, revealing consistent, statistically improbable deviations over a prolonged period. This pattern cannot be explained by environmental variability or market anomalies." He brought up another screen, displaying a side-by-side analysis of Kale's own past public statements on Ethelian trade versus the true data. The contrast was damning. Riona stepped forward, her voice softening but her resolve hardening. "Senator Kale speaks of disrupting legitimate negotiations. But what is legitimate about deception? This isn't merely about numbers. It's about trust. It's about the future of Ethel, a world whose delicate balance relies on fair trade and honest partnership within the conquered. Undervaluing our light flora is not just an economic tactic, it is an ecological threat, demanding more for less, pushing our planet to its limits. Her words, imbued with Ethelian empathy, resonated deeply, touching the emotional core of the issue beyond just the data. Several delegates shifted, their expressions thoughtful. Kale's face tightened. These emotional appeals are irrelevant to the facts. They present no concrete, irrefutable link to any specific individual or faction within the conquered. It's all conjecture and inference, designed to create scandal where none exists. He spread his hands, feigning exasperation. I urge the council to dismiss these baseless accusations and proceed with the vital work of the summit. There is one final piece of evidence, Senator Lysander stated, his eyes locking with Kale's. A hidden data fragment embedded within the manipulated financial logs. It's a digital watermark, a unique signature that confirms the source and the intent. He looked at Riona. Riona, if you would. Riona nodded, taking a deep breath. She extended her hand towards the primary projection screen, not physically touching it but focusing her internal energy. The room grew still. A faint, golden aura shimmered around her fingertips, an almost imperceptible ripple in the air. Her Ethelian senses, honed by years of navigating complex energy fields, reached out, not to manipulate, but to perceive. She found the specific frequency, the subtle signature Kale had left behind, a characteristic energy pattern unique to his data encryption. A low, resonant tone filled the chamber. On the main screen, a hidden layer of data, previously invisible, flickered into existence. It was a series of encrypted directives, internal memos, and personal communications, all originating from Kale's private network. The directives detailed the precise methods for manipulating the Ethelian trade data, outlining the environmental variability coefficients as a cover. They explicitly mentioned maximizing personal profits through speculative investments in industries that would benefit from Ethel's suppressed market value. Kale's signature, verified by conquered security protocols, flashed prominently at the bottom of each document. Gasps erupted from the delegates. The council members leaned forward, their faces etched with shock and dawning comprehension. The evidence was irrefutable. Kale's carefully constructed facade shattered. His face, moments ago composed, now twisted into a furious mask. "This is a forgery," Kale roared, scrambling to his feet, knocking his chair over. "A malicious fabrication. You have no authority to present such nonsense." The data is authenticated by the Concord's own security protocols. Senator, the Cathar elder, the council chair, stated, his voice grave. It bears your unique biometric encryption signature. He looked at the other council members. This evidence is conclusive. A cacophony of voices filled the chamber. Delegates rose, some shouting, others conferring in hushed tones. Kale was immediately surrounded by security personnel, his protests ignored. The sheer weight of the evidence, presented so clearly and activated by Riona's unique ability, left no room for doubt. Riona and Lysander stood at the podium, their hands still clasped, watching the scene unfold. A profound sense of relief washed over them, mixed with the lingering adrenaline. They had done it. They had exposed the betrayal. The council chair struck his gavel. Order, order in the chamber. His gaze settled on Lysander and Riona. The High Council on Ethical Governance finds the evidence presented to be credible and damning. Senator Valerius Kale is hereby stripped of his authority and placed under immediate investigation for corruption and endangering interstellar trade relations. He paused, then continued, his voice ringing with renewed purpose. The interstellar trade treaty with Ethel will proceed, but under revised terms, ensuring fair and equitable representation of Ethel's true economic value. Furthermore, a comprehensive review of all past treaties will be initiated to uncover any similar manipulations. A wave of applause, hesitant at first, then thunderous, swept through the room. Delegates, relieved that justice had been served and the treaty saved, turned to Lysander and Riona, their faces expressing gratitude and admiration. Lysander felt Riona lean into him, her entire being radiating calm and satisfaction. The mental static that had plagued her earlier had completely dissipated, replaced by a quiet, steady peace. He squeezed her hand, his heart overflowing. The mission was accomplished. Ethel was safe. Their future together lay before them, unburdened by this immense threat. They had faced down power and corruption, and they had won, not just for Ethel, but for the principle of truth and fair dealing across the stars. The High Council acted swiftly. News of Cale's arrest and the subsequent uncovering of his network spread through the Concord like wildfire. Within days, his co-conspirators were apprehended across various systems, their schemes dismantled. The interstellar trade treaty with Ethel, now based on accurate data, was ratified unanimously. It ensured Ethel's unique light flora would be valued justly, securing its economic future and protecting its delicate ecosystem. The principle of fair dealing across the stars, championed by Lysander and Riona, had been upheld. A week after the summit, a special commendation ceremony was held in the council chambers on Viridian Prime. The chamber, once a battleground of political machinations, now felt filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Lysander and Riona stood before the assembled delegates, their hands linked, a silent testament to their unwavering unity. Citizens Lysander and Riona, the council chair began, his voice resonating through the room. Your courage and dedication have not only saved a vital treaty, but have also revealed a deeper corruption threatening the very foundations of interspecies trust. Your alliance, forged in the pursuit of truth, stands as a beacon for what is possible when different worlds unite for a common, ethical cause. A wave of respectful applause swept through the chamber. Delegates from various species approached them, offering congratulations and thanks. A venerable Cathar diplomat, whose species was known for their strict adherence to truth, bowed deeply. Your actions have restored faith, young ones. The Concord owes you a profound debt. Riona felt a warmth spread through her, deeper than any she had experienced before. Lysander's hand in hers was a steady anchor, his presence a comforting shield against the lingering echoes of the chamber's energy. She met his gaze, a shared understanding passing between them. They had truly made a difference. We merely sought to protect Ethel, Riona said, her voice clear and strong, and to ensure fairness for all. Lysander nodded. The truth, once uncovered, demands action. We simply answered that call. The official recognition marked a turning point. Their story, a human and an Ethelian, students who uncovered a high-level conspiracy, became a symbol of interspecies cooperation. It sparked discussions across the Concord about transparency and ethical governance, strengthening interstellar peace in ways they hadn't fully anticipated. Their quiet alliance, born from a unique need for proximity, had become a powerful force for change. Weeks blurred into months. The academic year drew to a close, yet their study sessions continued, no longer driven by external threats but by a shared desire for knowledge and each other's company. They still sought out secluded pods, the familiar intimacy of their shared space a comfort. Lysander found that even without the pressure of deciphering encrypted data, Riona's presence still brought him unparalleled clarity and peace. It was a symbiotic bond that transcended the initial need. It feels strange, Riona mused one afternoon, her tail idly tracing patterns on the data slate, to focus on economics without a hidden plot lurking beneath the surface. Lysander smiled, closing his own data slate. A welcome change, wouldn't you say? Though I suspect our understanding of interstellar markets is now far more practical than theoretical. Indeed, she agreed, her green eyes sparkling. We learned more about true power dynamics in those few months than any course could teach. She leaned closer, her soft fur brushing his arm, and I learned the profound strength of quiet trust. Lysander's internal thoughts drifted. He had come to the academy to master interstellar economics, to navigate the complex currents of trade. But his experiences with Riona, the moral imperative to protect Ethel, and the subsequent exposure of Kale's corruption had shifted his perspective entirely. He no longer saw just numbers and markets. He saw systems, connections, the delicate balance of trust that held the conquered together. He saw the potential for both immense good and profound harm. "I've been thinking," Lysander began, turning to face Riona fully. "My focus has changed. I still believe in strong economic ties, but I see now how easily they can be manipulated, how vulnerable worlds can be." Riona listened intently, her ears swiveling slightly. "What are you thinking, Lysander?" "I want to pursue interstellar diplomacy," he stated, the words feeling right as he said them. "To work towards building those bridges between worlds, fostering fair relations, ensuring the kind of justice we fought for, but from within the system." A slow, radiant smile spread across Riona's face. "Lysander, that is a noble path, a necessary path." She reached out, her fingers gently touching his cheek. "And you would be exceptional at it. Your calm logic, your unwavering sense of fairness. And your unique insights, Riona," he added, holding her gaze. "Your ability to perceive beyond the surface, your empathy, your connection to the life of a world." He squeezed her hand. "I wouldn't want to do it without you, by my side." Riona's heart swelled. The thought of a future dedicated to bridging worlds, with Lysander as her partner, filled her with a sense of purpose even greater than her academic pursuits. Her mind, once overwhelmed by the cacophony of the universe, now felt perfectly aligned, perfectly at peace, especially when he was near. "There is nothing I would rather do," she confirmed, her voice soft with emotion. "To see the galaxy with you, to work for understanding, for true peace." Their academic programs concluded with distinction. Lysander's thesis on ethical market regulation and Riona's on interspecies sensory integration in communication were praised as groundbreaking, reflections of their unique journey. They had indeed found something far more profound than just knowledge within the Academy's walls. They had found their purpose and each other. Their first joint assignment took them to the newly established Concord outpost on Eris Prime, a lush, temperate world designated as a neutral ground for delicate trade negotiations. As their shuttle descended through the soft, cloud-streaked atmosphere, Lysander reached for Riona's hand. "A new beginning," he murmured, looking at the vibrant green landscapes below. Riona leaned her head against his shoulder, her tail gently coiling around his arm. The mental static of the vast universe was silent, replaced by the quiet harmony of their shared presence. "Our beginning," she corrected, her voice filled with warmth. "Together, shaping the future, one connection at a time." Lysander smiled, a profound sense of peace settling over him. Their love story, born from unexpected proximity and a desperate quest for truth, had blossomed into a testament to the power of quiet, comforting presence in a vast, complex universe. Their journey was just beginning, two souls intertwined, ready to build bridges across the stars, hand in hand.